everyone for joining us today. I'm Scott Ferguson. I'm a Senior Director, Product Management for the Risk Business Unit at ServiceNow. With me today is one of my favorite partners, Melissa from New Rocket. Melissa, can you share with the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what's happening at New Rocket?
Sure. Thanks very much, Scott. Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Cahoe, as Scott mentioned. I am the Global Strategist for Security, Risk, and Resilience at New Rocket, which is a relatively long title that essentially means that I'm responsible for working with customers like yourselves on being successful in your implementations, helping you come up and craft long-term journeys, and be successful in implementing risk management, security operations, third-party risk management, business continuity management, just about anything under the security, risk, and resilience umbrella. That is really what I'm responsible for, along with a team of excellent practitioners and ServiceNow implementers. New Rocket is a pure-play ServiceNow organization. We are focused on a variety of the workflows, including technology, customer, employee, and of course, security operations, as well as risk and resilience. Our focus is on helping our organizations solve the business problems. It's really easy for a customer, or actually for an implementer, to come in and help you solve your technical problems. You say, I want a button, I want it to be blue, and the implementer gives you a button that's blue. The reality is, though, no one wants the button. They want what the button can do. So if we can actually start to focus on the problems you're solving and then allow your implementer to come up with the appropriate solution to solve that, we just use technology as the vehicle to do so. And we find that to be a lot more successful and helps our customers achieve long-term success.
So thanks for being here today. And I've got a couple of topics that are top of mind.
Sure.
As you look at news, you look at things happening in the space, I'm constantly seeing disruptions in service.
Right.
Organizations that are struggling, outages, whether it's power outages, it's network outages, it's just operational outages.
Right.
What are your thoughts on operational resilience? I don't think it gets enough conversation. And what should people be thinking about when it comes to making their businesses more resilient?
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you. I think that focusing on resilience is one of the most important things any organization can do. The reality is that we are in a world of constant change. And we may feel like this is more constant change than usual, but my statement is we've always had constant change. It's always been a little bit difficult. And with change comes risk. And with risk, generally comes disruption. Something unexpected can happen. There's always going to be the next power outage, to your point. It could be the next pandemic. It could be the next unexpected thing that happens to you. And organizations cannot 100% ever guarantee that they will be perfect and protected and safe. But they can be resilient. They can do everything they can to make sure that they are adequately protected to minimize disruption. And then when disruption happens, they recover quickly. And they're able to bring themselves back up to help support both their customers and their internal customers to make sure that they're able to do their jobs or receive the services they want to accomplish or want to provide.
So as someone starts to plan, right, to be a resilient business, right? You said they can't have it all. Right? They can have plans, they can they can have good intentions, they can have safeguards in place. What are those things that people should be thinking about, right, as they start to become a resilient business?
I think that's a great question. And I think the first thing you need to think about is what's most important for you. Like what is important to your business? What are the services that you provide to your customers, or what are your services you put out into the world that are important, that need to be kept and continued? Then what are the bad things that could happen to those services? And what are you going to do about it? And then try and figure out how likely is that bad thing to happen? What would happen if that bad thing occurred? So this is likelihood and impact in the risk language, like the risk taxonomy. And then, again, what controls can you put in place to do so? You can put in a business continuity plan. You can start to do disaster recovery testing. You can put in technical solutions, so like an environment that recovers within seconds rather than within hours. All of those things, and then take a moment, step back and say, well, now, how likely is something to go down, and how bad will it be when it happens?
Okay. So as you started to talk about risk there in operational resilience, and I know there's business continuity, there's operational resilience,
so much
risk, there's all of these different things that play a part in that. So as someone starts to think about that, they start to plan for how to approach that. Is there things that they should prioritize? You know, like this is the quick win, this is the more strategic thing. Like, how do people approach becoming resilient?
So the first thing I think an organization needs to do is that you need to define their North Star. Once you've sort of said, okay, my North Star is to make my organization more resilient, more flexible in the face of change, et cetera, then you can start to put together a plan. Every company's plan is going to vary slightly. Every organization is different. With that being said, the first place I think organizations need to go is they need to start to try and be digitally resilient. The reason I recommend digital resilience is because it's easier. Organizations can't, sometimes talking about operational resilience, organizations get stuck in like the enormity of it all, and then they get sort of stuck in this quagmire of analysis paralysis, and they can't get anywhere. So if you start with digital resilience, and digital resilience is really the ability for your technical infrastructure to be responsive and change and to be flexible and the ability to recover quickly, then you're going to be able to start to build that good foundation. What I recommend is organizations get an inventory of their what's important to their business, as I mentioned earlier, and then what supports those things that are important to your business. And what do those things depend on? So if I start to talk about this in a little bit less using the word things over and over again, like what services are you providing to your clients? What processes deliver those services? What applications support those processes? What servers and assets support those those processes and applications, and then you've now got this inventory where you can actually start to see, okay, where are my most important places to focus? Then you need to put in some risk analysis and governance in place. You need to define the rules on how do you make sure that those inventory is protected. Make sure that your people who are responsible for your inventory know the rules they're supposed to be following, because otherwise, how do you expect them to accomplish them?
Yes.
Threat-based risk assessments. How often could this go down? What are the threats that are associated to it? I think all of those things is really a good place to start.
Okay. So as I think about, and that was great in laying out that plan. The one part that I see that might be missing from that, and I'm interested in your perspective on this, is how does third parties play a part in what you were just talking about? Great
question, and I completely agree with you. It's something that has to be talked about separately, but it is really very much connected. My view is that you need to hold your third parties accountable to the exact same level of control and structure that you hold your internal organizations to. So your third parties, you are outsourcing things to third parties, but the one thing you are not outsourcing is the risk. If something happens on your third party, you are going to have a negative impact on your brand. And you've actually said before, and it's stuck in my head forever, which is that you gain trust in droplets and you lose it in buckets. And your third parties are one of the most common areas where things could go wrong. So you need to make sure you do have a fulsome third-party risk management program. You've defined what are your services and processes that your vendors support, and how are they performing them? And how are they supporting them, and are they adequately protected using the same governance that you would apply internally?
Okay. This sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. Okay. Yes. It's a journey.
It is a journey. But now as I think about an organization that's going to try to adopt this.
Where do you start?
Well, we've talked a little bit about that, but I don't know how many organizations are ready to adopt something at that level. You see where I'm going to go with this?
Yep.
Like how does an organization prepare themselves, right, to take on something like this? Because it's a huge change to an organization.
Absolutely. And I really think that the most important thing about this is the cultural change that has to happen for an organization to be successful. Risk is traditionally considered something that happens to the people who do the work in the business. It's a roadblock, it's a problem, it slows things down. No one wants to actually do risk and compliance, which is really interesting to me given that I've basically dedicated my entire career in helping people do risk and compliance. And you have to change how risk is considered. Risk management shouldn't be a roadblock. It should be an enabler to an organization, allowing it to be innovative responsibly. I say a lot of the time it's not about roadblocks, it's about guardrails. And the more guardrails you can put into place so that people can move quickly, efficiently, and get to the right destination, the better off you would be. The way to do that is really change the way you think about risk. Risk is not a bad thing to talk about. Identifying a risk and raising the risk is a really good thing because you've just identified something that's gone wrong, that could go wrong before it's happened. And everybody's in a much better position if you do that.
Yes.
So what you really need to start to do is start to think about integrating risk management into the fabric of your organization. This is really about making sure everybody understands the why of what they're doing. Yes, it's annoying to have to put in passwords, but we all put in passwords thousands of times a day because we now all agree to it. And it's the same sort of thing. We understand the security and the necessity of doing passwords. It's the same as understanding the necessity of having to fill out a form to say, okay, I'm going to be making this new business service and I want to put it out in the market. Those types of things need to become really understood as to the high value they have for the organization and the negative impact that could happen. In addition, we really need to make sure this is as frictionless as possible and efficient as possible so people feel like they don't feel like they're being slowed down or bogged down by bureaucracy. They're actually feeling like they're doing it as part of their daily job. And that's where a product like ServiceNow and where AI is going, I think can really cause like a really good improvement.
Okay, now
we're getting serious.
well, you've made me think of a couple of different things.
Okay.
So we'll get to the AI one.
Of course.
Right, but you said there's a couple things, and you ended with AI, but I want to go back to the first one.
Sure.
Okay, because what you were describing is a mindset shift. And you talked about getting people comfortable with this, or getting them
Right.
on board. How does someone get people's minds to shift to where it should be, where yes, it becomes okay to put in that password every time.
Right.
How do you get people to start thinking about things in that way?
Right.
It's not an easy task.
No, not at all. And I think one of the biggest things is the realization is it's a combination of a top-down initiative and a grassroots initiative.
Okay.
So the reason why I mentioned top-down is because it is very important to have executive support into implementing a risk program that is not about slapping people's wrists, but is about enabling your business to be successful. If you don't have executive support and that type of mind shift that you're describing, it'll fail, because what will happen is everybody will be trying to do the right thing, raising risks, etc., and then they're going to be getting slapped down by somebody for raising the risks, and that can result in a bit of a schism between the two priorities. One priority, which is making sure no risks exist at all, so we don't have them, and the actual priority of responsibly reporting the risks.
Okay.
It also needs to be grassroots,
Yeah.
because you need everybody to be enthusiastic champions of risk. You need someone to say, I know I have to encrypt this data and it has to encrypt, but I also know that the negative impact of having that data pulled out is far higher than the impact of my having to deal with encryption.
That's true. That is so true. So let's move to the second one.
Sure.
You talked about AI.
Yes.
At the very end there. This goes as part of everything we've talked about today.
Right.
Right? AI is going to change the way companies look at risk
Right.
and compliance. It's going to change the way companies are resilient.
Yep.
It's going to change the way organizations function. How do you see, in the context of operational resilience or even risk and compliance, AI changing the way that we work as we move into the future?
Perfect. I love that. And I think that AI is going to have the ability to revolutionize organizations on how they do business. And I do think it's also important to mention, we talk about AI a lot, but really what we are talking about is automation, and using AI as one of the tools of automation. And the more automation that we have in place, the more efficient we can make organizations, and the decrease in friction that can occur. But specifically focusing on AI is going to start to have the ability to make it so that someone doesn't have to go into a system to enter in a risk assessment. Maybe have them have a natural conversation with an agent to be able to answer the questions of, like, how is the risk, what is the level of regulatory risk, as an example. And if they happen to say, well, I'm in a very highly regulated environment and this particular process is very heavily scrutinized, that would result in a regulatory risk of high. So being able to start to make it so someone doesn't feel like they're being forced to do the drudgery of filling out a risk assessment, they're having a natural conversation, which is why in ops risk, so many people do it as like an interview. You get everybody into a room, you get them all talking, and that's how you gather the information. A risk analyst interprets it. In the future, agentic AI is going to be able to interpret it.
That's awesome. And that sounds like a utopia.
It's a little bit of a utopia.
So utopias scare me in that I don't know how we're going to get there.
Okay.
Right. And I don't know that everyone's ready.
Right.
Right. Especially as I think about AI hallucinations, as I
Sure.
think about the data sets that AI is using, and how do I know that it's trained on the right models?
Right.
How do I know that it's giving me the right answer? How do I know that it's not giving me bad advice?
Right.
Right. As I think about the impact of AI on risk,
Right.
like I can't get that wrong. Right?
Agreed.
So how should organizations look at the AI that they're using in their organization so that we're not, fined a huge fine because the AI gave me bad advice?
Right. Excellent question. I want to mention that utopias actually excite me versus scaring me. So it's a very different sort of mindset.
Some excite me. This one scares me.
This one scares you. Okay.
Yeah.
This one excites me because I consider it a North Star.
Okay.
It is not something that I would tell someone to do tomorrow. It is something that I think that we can all start to strive towards.
Okay.
And so really it's about defining that North Star, defining the journey and the way stations along it. So for example, if I were to be implementing AI for a company tomorrow, I would not be trying to implement operationalizing their risk control self-assessments using agentic AI. So don't worry about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But what I would start to do is start to look at their compliance and the controls and their policies and places where we have a wealth of data that is consistent that we can start to derive uses for automation and artificial intelligence. For example, I was speaking with a client yesterday, and they had recommended or had thought of maybe what they could do is they could start to use AI to rationalize their policies so that their policies all follow the same format. So you would input the framework you want the policy to be in, put in the text, AI would rationalize it, then someone, of course, would need to review it to make sure the hallucinations haven't occurred, and go through and get that started as sort of like that first step.
Okay.
As we're doing that, we're getting lessons learned. We're learning more about how AI is going to be functioning in your environment, the needs of your particular environment, so that you can start to handle that and prepare for the next step, which could be handling your business continuity plans and maybe taking a look at how are your tasks laying out? Do you have any duplicate tasks? Or maybe you're looking at your controls, identifying duplicate controls or control gaps, like looking for the opportunities and the candidates for automation where AI will really shine and you get lessons learned in a safer environment will help to create the foundation to achieve what sort of that nirvana of being able to have agentic AI perform risk assessment interviews.
Okay.
I'll add just before you go in, because I also want to point out how important AI governance would be on this.
And I was headed right towards.
I know. I'm like, but I had to talk. Yeah.
So go ahead. You're going to answer my question.
There we go. Before you've even asked, the importance of AI governance cannot be understated. Like you absolutely have to be thinking about the risks that AI can pose to your organization, and what are the risks AI can pose to the process and the services that it is meant to support. You have to again create guardrails to make sure that AI is functioning normally and as expected, and that the hallucinations or the negative answers or the incorrect responses are being minimized as much as possible.
Absolutely. As I start to think about AI governance, because I agree, right? We've got to put governance in place, right? AI is fabulous. Right? I use probably 5 to 6 different AI tools every single day, right? I'm all in.
All right.
Right? However, right, used inappropriately, right, or sometimes unaware, right, can be an issue.
Absolutely.
Right. So as I start to think about, for me personally, right, if AI gives me a bad answer in the question that I ask it,
right,
it's not a big deal. It's,
right.
It's no impact.
Right.
AI use in a large organization, right, you need to make sure that you don't get a wrong answer. So how should a company approach and start to think about a governance program for AI? What are some of the components that they should include in a mature AI governance program? And how would you foresee someone starting that journey to AI governance?
Before I answer about specifically the journey on AI governance, I think it's important we talk a bit about the journey on AI. Because not every organization is ready to adopt AI on day one.
Yeah.
And many organizations have been hearing a lot of hype. We've been doing a lot of talk about Gen AI.
Yeah.
Boards are asking, well, what's your AI strategy? And you have to go through a bit of an AI journey for you to be able to really get to where you want to get to, which is using AI responsibly. Mm-hmm. The first thing you need to do is make sure that you're informed. So being AI informed is pretty much the first thing that I think customers really need to go through. You do need to understand the different types of AI. You need to understand it's not just Gen AI. There's robot process automation, predictive intelligence, machine learning, some of these that have been out for quite some time and are available as well, and maybe actually safer choices for candidates of automation than generative AI. Once you're starting to get AI informed, you now also start to create data sharing programs within the organization. AI is only as good as the data it has. If you have siloed data, AI is going to work in silos, and you're not going to make your organization any better. Mm-hmm. You also need to be thinking about a strategy for managing your data, making sure your large language models are functioning correctly. And you need to start at this point to put together governance in place. Start to think about, okay, what am I going to do if someone wants to implement AI? What controls should be required? What risks are applicable? How am I going to be assessing those risks? Who's responsible for assessing those risks? Because the average IT risk analyst may not actually have the skills and the capability to do so. And you want to bake that into the process to bring AI to either to the market or to your internal customers. Once you're there, you're kind of an AI ready. So you've got your governance in place, your data strategy's okay, it's not perfect, but no one ever is. And you start to be able to come up with your candidates of automation. My recommendation for candidates of automation are the ones that have the quickest time to value and the highest value. And that combination is really your candidates. Okay. In consideration of that, you also, because you're going to be using a governance program, you're also going to be thinking about, well, what is the risk of this? If you are thinking your best candidate of automation is the thing that touches every single one of your customers all of the time, I can actually see from your face how that's stressing you out, so I'll stop the scenario.
You're good.
We'll stop.
But it's high risk.
Yeah, don't do it.
Right.
Like maybe do that later, or maybe never.
Yeah.
The reality is that AI is best used today, and there's a whole future out there that we can't even predict. But AI is best used today for helping make decisions or do things that a human doesn't have to do, and saving all of the difficult work for the human brains that we need to make those decisions.
I love that, especially as you can tell, as a risk-averse person.
Yes.
Not willing to touch every customer all at once. So
on your first step. Terrible plan.
Yes.
Don't do it,
idea.
please.
Thank you. Thank you for providing that advice. So, no, this is great. And as I start to think about the next steps, right, and people are on this journey, they're starting to see some value. Do you have any kind of parting advice for someone on this journey? I know, and you just laid out a great plan. But is there any other adjacent advice that you'd want someone to think about as they start on this journey?
I think if I were to give anybody some advice as they're starting on this journey is make sure you know where you're trying to go. Always have a North Star, because if you just start to automate and introduce artificial intelligence wherever you want, you're actually never going to achieve the objective that you want to achieve. My next piece of advice is consider this to be a journey. Your first step may have small value, but your next step will be additive, and then exponentially, your journey will result in improvements in your organization. Look back as you look forward. Look at how successful your previous implementations have been. How well has it worked? Has it achieved the objectives you were looking to achieve? Do you need to course correct? And of course, most importantly, as we've been talking about, have a good, solid governance structure in place. Who is going to be the decision maker? What are the parameters that everybody should be following? How are you going to make sure that you are creating guardrails and not roadblocks?
How important is organizational change in the context of someone's AI journey?
I think it's very important. When you think about implementing AI, you're completely changing how an organization works and functions. You can't just implement technology and expect people and processes to follow. You really do need to think people first, processes second, technology third.
So Melissa, we've been talking about operational resilience.
Yep.
I'm sure in all the work that you've done, you've got some great examples of customers that have seen success in becoming resilient organization. Can you share anecdotally some of those successes that you've seen with customers for operational resilience?
Absolutely. The majority of the customers that have been successful in achieving operational resilience have done a couple of key things. First of all, they have used ServiceNow as an agent for change, but have not considered ServiceNow to be the sole change in the organization. As we've been talking about organizational change, that is one of the most important pieces of achieving operational resilience. And you need to be able to break down the silos between your departments. And that's not just a data problem. It is completely possible to go and implement in ServiceNow and take your silos and just put it in ServiceNow and then ask your implementer, why isn't it integrated? In addition to that, almost everybody that I've seen that has been successful with operational resilience has considered this a journey. You don't just go and you do one implementation and I'm resilient. It's not how it works. No. You have to say, okay, what is my first reasonable step that will provide me with highest value in the least amount of time? And then what's my next step? And continue to achieve successes, grow momentum, and start to connect the different parts of the platform together. Operational resilience isn't just a use case. It is something that goes and unites the entire platform from your technology, your employee, your security operations, and your risk management to bring everything together to start to answer a single question, which is, can I withstand the next outage? And you have to be able to start to connect that together. A good data structure and somebody who's thinking about your data from all of those disparate pieces and starting to connect it together is critical.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Melissa. Great partner. I'm so glad that we get the chance to work together, and I'm looking forward to us working together again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.